William Henry Harrison. William Henry Harrison, the ninth President of the United States, is most famous for having the shortest presidency in American history, lasting only 31 days. A hero of the War of 1812 and a seasoned politician, Harrison entered office in 1841 at the age of 68, then considered elderly. Determined to portray strength and vitality, he delivered the longest inaugural address ever recorded, nearly 2 hours, while standing in cold, wet weather without adequate clothing. Within weeks, Harrison fell seriously ill. Long believed to be pneumonia, modern historians now propose that his death was more likely caused by enteric fever linked to contaminated water in Washington, D.C. His condition deteriorated rapidly, and he died on April 4, 1841. Harrison's unexpected death created the first constitutional crisis of presidential succession, ultimately leading Vice President John Tyler to assume full presidential powers. Harrison's brief time in office demonstrated how fragile early American governance could be when confronted with sudden tragedy. Zachary Taylor. Zachary Taylor, the 12th President of the United States, was a celebrated military general whose battlefield fame carried him into the White House in 1849. Known as Old Rough and Ready, Taylor had no prior political experience, yet his reputation for toughness and integrity made him appealing in a nation divided over slavery. During his presidency, Taylor took a surprisingly firm stance against the expansion of slavery into newly acquired Western territories, putting him at odds with Southern leaders despite being a slaveholder himself. His time in office, however, was abruptly cut short. In July 1850, after attending Independence Day festivities in extreme heat, Taylor consumed large amounts of raw fruit and iced milk, later falling violently ill. He died 5 days afterward. Although rumors of poisoning persisted for decades, modern examinations indicate he likely succumbed to acute gastroenteritis caused by bacterial contamination. Taylor's sudden death shifted the political balance at a crucial moment, ultimately paving the way for the Compromise of 1850. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, led the nation through its greatest constitutional, moral, and military crisis, the Civil War. Elected in 1860 amid deep sectional conflict, he worked relentlessly to preserve the Union while redefining the meaning of American freedom. His issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863 transformed the war into a struggle not just for unity, but for human liberation. By 1865, Union victory was in sight, and Lincoln began envisioning a lenient, reconciliatory Reconstruction. But on April 14th of that same year, while attending a play at Ford's Theater, he was shot by actor and Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth. Lincoln died the following morning, becoming the first U.S. president assassinated. His death plunged the country into mourning and left post-war rebuilding in the hands of leaders less capable of unifying a fractured nation. Lincoln's legacy endures as one of America's most transformative figures, whose leadership reshaped the nation's destiny. James A. Garfield. James A. Garfield, the 20th President of the United States, entered office in 1881 with significant potential despite having served only briefly. A former Civil War general and respected congressman, Garfield was known for his sharp intellect and commitment to civil service reform. However, his presidency was abruptly ended when he was shot on July 2, 1881, at a Washington, D.C. train station by Charles J. Guiteau, a disgruntled office seeker. The gunshot itself was not immediately fatal, but the medical treatment Garfield received proved catastrophic. Doctors repeatedly probed his wound with unsterilized fingers and instruments, introducing severe infections that slowly ravaged his body. Over nearly 3 months, Garfield endured extreme pain, persistent fevers, and dramatic weight loss as his condition worsened. He ultimately died on September 19, 1881, from infection and internal complications directly related to the handling of his injury. Garfield's death stands as one of the clearest examples of fatal medical mismanagement in presidential history. William McKinley. William McKinley, the 25th President of the United States, served from 1897 until 1901 and oversaw a period of rapid economic growth and rising American power. A Civil War veteran and longtime congressman, McKinley was known for his calm leadership and support of protective tariffs. His presidency, however, came to a sudden and tragic end during a public reception at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. On September 6, 1901, McKinley was shot twice at close range by anarchist Leon Czolgosz while greeting visitors in a receiving line. One bullet was removed, but the second remained lodged deep in his abdomen. Although McKinley initially appeared stable, infection gradually spread through his body as physicians struggled with the limits of early 20th century medicine. After several days of decline marked by fever, weakness, and gangrene in the damaged tissues, McKinley died on September 14, 1901. His death marked the end of a presidency defined by national expansion and personal accessibility. Warren G. Harding. Warren G. Harding, the 29th President of the United States, entered office in 1921, promising stability and a return to normalcy after World War I. A former newspaper publisher and U.S. Senator, Harding was known for his approachable manner and preference for delegating responsibilities to trusted advisors. Although his administration later became tied to several scandals involving officials he appointed, Harding himself remained widely liked during his presidency. In the summer of 1923, he embarked on an extensive cross-country speaking tour designed to connect with citizens and highlight national recovery. While traveling along the West Coast, Harding began experiencing significant fatigue, stomach distress, and chest pain. Physicians initially suspected food poisoning or exhaustion, but his symptoms worsened rapidly. On August 2, 1923, Harding collapsed and died suddenly in a San Francisco hotel suite, most likely from a heart attack or stroke. His unexpected death brought an abrupt end to a presidency already strained by physical ailments and demanding obligations. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, served an unprecedented 4 terms and guided the country through both the Great Depression and World War II. Despite living with the effects of polio, which left him unable to walk unaided, Roosevelt maintained a demanding schedule and remained deeply involved in wartime planning. By early 1945, however, his health had begun to decline noticeably. He appeared increasingly fatigued, lost weight, and showed signs of severe hypertension and cardiac strain. Seeking rest, Roosevelt traveled to Warm Springs, Georgia, where he often retreated for medical relief. On April 12, 1945, while sitting for a portrait, he suddenly complained of a severe headache and collapsed. Doctors quickly determined he had suffered a massive cerebral hemorrhage. Roosevelt never regained consciousness and died shortly afterward. His death occurred just weeks before the end of the war in Europe, bringing to a close a presidency defined by constant pressure, prolonged illness, and immense administrative demands. John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, entered office in 1961 as the youngest elected president in American history. A decorated World War II naval officer and former senator, Kennedy projected energy and confidence while managing Cold War tensions, domestic challenges, and an increasingly complex international landscape. Despite chronic health issues, including Addison's disease and severe back problems, he maintained a demanding public schedule. On November 22, 1963, during a motorcade through Dallas, Texas, Kennedy was shot twice by rifle fire as his limousine passed the Texas School Book Depository. The wounds were immediately recognized as fatal, and he was pronounced dead at Parkland Memorial Hospital at 1 p.m. Police quickly arrested Lee Harvey Oswald, who was charged with the assassination, but denied involvement before being killed 2 days later. The circumstances surrounding the shooting, Oswald's role, and his sudden death led to decades of competing theories about whether the attack involved a lone gunman or a wider conspiracy.